Assalamu alaikum and welcome to your weekly edition of Morning Break. I'm Humeras Ziyarat.
And I'm Fatima Rizvi, and today we have another great show for you with our regular features like Hadith of the Week and our coaching tips from Sister Sidra Zaidi, and we'll be following Humera on her Video Ziyarat journal. And I'm actually looking really forward to that, Humera.
So am I, Fatima, but for now it's time for Hadith of the Week. So what Hadith have you got for us?
Today I picked out a Hadith that is narrated by Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he says it in praise of Lady Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And the Hadith is, "A flower nipped in the bud, it was from paradise and it went to paradise, but has left its fragrance in my mind." Which actually is a very, very beautiful hadith that Imam Ali Islam, a praise that he has said about Lady Fatima Zahra, sallallahu alayha, and I think it's just an amazing thing. How many husbands would really say that about their wives? And obviously, it's also a sort of him illustrating that she really was from paradise.
Completely agree, and I think, like you said, that image of the flower is very much symbolic of paradise, and like everyone says, she did come from paradise, didn't she? She was made from the seeds, I guess, of Jannah. And yeah, it's very moving, and it's very sad to read the fact that she's referred to a flower that was nipped in the bud. And that word nipped is so, it just seems like her life was cut at such an early age, and it was. So yeah, I completely agree, and in praise of a man saying that in praise of his wife is even more moving because of the fact that he says that her fragrance was left behind. And to think of losing someone you love is bad enough, but to lose someone who was so amazing, I don't really know how you would recover from that.
Absolutely, yeah, that's so true. And it must have been an awful time for Imam Ali alayhi salam when he obviously a few months before our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had passed away, and then of course Lady Fatima Zahra had also then left and passed away. So it must have been a very tough time for Imam Ali alayhi salam. Definitely, he must have missed them both greatly. So yeah.
I agree, and I think also this idea of being nipped in the bud was very much talking about the end of her life as well, not so much just the death itself, because everyone talks about the moment the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away, how Lady Fatima, her whole life deteriorated, and at such a young age of 18, 19, roughly that kind of age, to need, for example, a walking stick, to need help, after being such an active young woman as well, really shows that that idea of the loss of the Prophet, peace be upon him, affected her so badly. So I think that's probably that started the process of being nipped in the bud anyway.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it was definitely a tragedy, and hopefully, inshallah, our viewers can take heed, and obviously remember our great Lady Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and that she is a great example for all women to follow.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we'd like to take this opportunity to ask you, as we do every week, to email us with comments, suggestions, any thoughts that you have about the show. We'd love to hear from you. So please email us at morningbreak@ahlulbayt.tv if you have any comments you'd like us to read. But now it's time for Article of the Week. So this week we have an article from the BBC, and this article is about doctors monitoring stress levels of patients. And the article's interesting because what it talks about is raising blood pressure. And the bottom line is that they say that it's becoming difficult for doctors to monitor people's blood pressure levels because the very fact that they're going into a doctor's surgery itself is making them nervous. And they've done a study as to how people feel when they're going into doctor's surgeries, and they say that often people feel very nervous. So the whole night before they've been worrying about it, and they don't know what to say, and they don't know what the doctor's going to do to monitor their blood pressure levels and all those sorts of things. So they're saying it's becoming very hard to monitor that. And there's sort of other ways that they're looking to do that, monitoring people's blood pressure levels.
I'm actually not surprised that that research says that if you go to the doctors, your blood pressure gets a bit higher, because I myself, if I ever go to the doctors, I get a bit nervous. So, you know, I can imagine if somebody who really chronically suffers from high blood pressure, then it must go up, you know, just slightly. But how many people suffer from high blood pressure? What does the article say?
Well, the article actually says that 40% of the UK actually suffer from high blood pressure, which is why this is such an important issue really for the doctors to look into, because it doesn't make sense to be measuring someone's blood pressure when it's going to be higher than it should be, purely because they're nervous about seeing a doctor. So it's quite a large issue amongst the whole of UK, and I think, you know, amongst the Asian community as well, high blood pressure is a massive problem.
I think definitely when you look at the Asian you know, society, it is quite high. That can't be for everyone though. I mean, I understand the study has said that, you know, you go in and your blood pressure is a bit higher than normal because you're nervous because of your surroundings. But there probably are some people who are cool as a cucumber, and they, you know, it doesn't affect them.
There probably are some people who it doesn't affect, but I think they're measuring or monitoring this on a really general level because of the fact they've noticed an inconsistency there. And what's interesting is, you know, they say it depends on your age and your gender as well. I think that men are probably more likely to be nervous about going to the doctors. I think that's probably, this is just my opinion, but it might be to do with the fact that women tend to go to the doctors more because of issues related to children, for example, and things like that, so it might be more of a normal thing for them. And one way around this, they've said, is for people to get their blood pressure checked by nurses instead, just as if it's like a regular thing to go in and get the resident nurse or whatever to check you, rather than it being a formal appointment with a doctor. So yeah, they're looking into it. They're doing a lot of research and a lot of studying, and they've talked about the measurement of how many units it goes up by. I think they said the blood pressure goes up by 17 units if people are measured by are monitored by a nurse. However, when it's a doctor, it goes up by something like 24 units. So there's quite a significant difference there.
Wow, yeah, that is quite a lot of difference actually, yeah.
Well, I know that your father's a doctor, isn't he? And what has he ever mentioned about dealing with patients who are very nervous?
Well, my dad's actually an ophthalmologist, which means he's an eye doctor, an eye surgeon. So he obviously, part of his job is to really get up close to his patient's eyes. So obviously that can make anybody quite nervous, especially when he uses his instruments and, you know, the light, the torch, and kind of going right close in to sort of see what's in the eyeball. It's not just sort of what an optometrist does, sort of testing your sight, but he's literally looking for cataracts, or if there's any signs of glaucoma or anything like that. So because of that, yes, his patients, I'm sure they do get nervous. And I myself, whenever my dad checks my eyes, I'm, you know, because they're right close up to you, so it can. But I don't think that has effect, obviously, on your, you know, on how well or on how healthy or unhealthy your eyes are. Just like our blood pressure can obviously be suddenly affected.
Yeah, I find the idea of someone checking my eyes really horrible. I mean, a lens checkup, etc. isn't so bad, but when you know it's for something a bit more serious, it's quite scary. I think blood pressure is something that should be, whoever does go to get it checked, it would probably be quite a regular thing. But yeah, it's definitely worth them looking into, isn't it, so that they know for the future how to deal with it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that, you know, we should all do, have regular checkups maybe to keep monitoring our blood pressure.
Definitely. Now, last week, Fatima visited a children's nursery in South London. Let's take a look.
Assalamu alaikum, and here I am today in Streatham, South London, to meet Sister Seema Raza and her lovely two twins, Hassan and Ayan. Here she runs her own nursery, Braeside Nursery. Assalamu alaikum, sister.
Wa alaikum salam, sister.
Sister, when did you first open up your own nursery?
Okay, well, I opened up my own nursery in December 2003. And it was harder for me because I was expecting my first child, so she was due like within a month. So it was a very crucial time for us, but alhamdulillah, we've made it through and we've gone past that phase now, so it's much better now.
So what actually made you decide to open up your own nursery?
I actually always wanted to have my own business. I wanted to work for myself rather than working for somebody else. And I suppose also with having your own business, you have more flexibility in the working hours. There are a number of reasons due to which I decided to come into opening up my own nursery. And some of those reasons are that it was close to where I lived. Being a mum, I thought every mum looks out for childcare, and having my own nursery would actually give me a great opportunity to take my children along with me to the nursery. Also, my mother-in-law is an early years teacher, and I thought that she would definitely support me if I had my own nursery. So when I actually opened up my own nursery, I got a lot of support from her. And I suppose with any successful business, you really need input and support from the family. And I actually got that from my mother-in-law and my husband. Alhamdulillah, they were very supportive towards us. She really helped us out initially as a start-off because I had no idea. The working hours were between 8 to 6, Monday to Friday, so I had the weekends free to myself, and I could really do whatever I wanted to. I have the free time to sort of spend with my family and my friends, and I just didn't want something which would take over my life completely, which is why I just thought this was like a good idea. We're registered to have children from 0 to 5 years of age, but they would normally start coming in when they're about 5 months, and that's when mums normally go back to work after their maternity leaves. We divide them into 3 different groups. We've got the 0 to 2-year-olds who stay in the baby room. We've got the 2 to 3-year-olds who are the toddlers, and we've got the 3 to 5-year-olds who are the preschool children. MashaAllah, I've got 3 children. I've got my daughter who's now, MashaAllah, 6, so she goes to school. And then I've got these 2, is Hassan Abbas Raza and Ayan Abbas Raza, and they're 2.5 now, and they have been coming to the nursery since they were about 7 months.
Wow, mashallah. So that must be really nice, the fact that your children are with you every day and they're playing and you can keep an eye on them also.
It's great to have that, and that was one of the main reasons I actually decided to come into the nursery business, so that I could actually see my children sort of developing, and I'm quite lucky to be in that position to be able to see my children grow and work at the same time.
Yes, alhamdulillah. And could you please describe a typical day in the nursery?
A typical day at the nursery would normally start at 8 a.m. in the morning. That's when the children start arriving into the nursery. They have about an hour of free play. At 9 o'clock, they're normally served breakfast. After they've had their breakfast, they would have a circle time in which we normally sit in a group with the children, and they'll be doing their basic numbers, shapes. We talk to them about what they've done over the weekend. We'll sing nursery rhymes with them. So it'll be a variety of different things that we're going to sit down in a group and do together with the rest of their peers. After they've had circle time, they'll be doing a structured planned activity, which is based on the 6 areas of learning from the EYFS. EYFS is the framework that we follow, and it stands for the Early Years Foundation Stage. This sort of guides us in all aspects of the nursery in terms of both statutory and non-statutory legislation that we need to follow. After they've done their planned activities, they need to unwind, so they go outdoors for a bit of fresh air. And then they'd come back inside, have some lunch, brush their teeth, and after lunch it's quiet time. After they've had their tea time snack, they have an afternoon activity. They go back outdoors to have a bit of outdoor play, and some of them start leaving by this time. By 6 o'clock we wrap up and it's time for us to go home, so that's really what a typical day is at the nursery.
Wow, so that's a really, really long day. 8 a.m. till 6 p.m.
Yeah. We have a 10-hour day, which is very long, and the girls work very hard here.
Why is it so important for children to attend nursery?
I think it's quite important for children to attend nursery because I personally feel that it builds up on their confidence before they're going to school. There's a lot of stimulating activities happening in the nursery, which obviously promote their development. Normally when they'd come into the nursery, they sort of socialise with the other children, and they sort of get used to being around children. They learn how to share, and there's obviously a lot of things going on around them. And they're normally allocated with a key worker who would plan activities for the child. She would observe the child and then record her findings, and then obviously plan her next step from there. So it's obviously it's a whole procedural thing which will support the development of the child. We really believe in learning through play, and I, from my own experience, have seen that children really learn a lot more through play, and it's much more fun and exciting for them. I've actually had hands-on experience with my own too. I had, when I started bringing them to nursery, I had one of them coming to the nursery with me, and I had the other one who was just not going to settle down, and he stayed with his grandparents. But me and my husband, we could actually both see quite a big difference in the way that the two were developing. We could see the one who was coming to nursery started using a lot more words. He took his first step a lot quicker. And we thought that, and he was much more friendly around other children as well. So we thought that, you know what, it's best that we put them both in together. We put the twin in as well, and we can see that they're sort of developing simultaneously. We can see them doing the same things, and mashallah, so they're doing really well. So I mean, I've actually seen this myself by sending one and not sending the other, and I can see a difference in children attending nursery and children not attending nursery. It really does boost onto their confidence. So I think it's good for children to be coming to nursery.
And what facilities have you had to install specially to provide like a fun environment and a safe environment for your children that attend your nursery?
Well, when I actually took over the nursery and when we came over as new management, we renovated the entire nursery. We wanted to have a very warm and welcoming nursery for the children and the parents, and we wanted to use very light pastel colours, and we provided a lot of new resources and equipment appropriate to the children's age. When we also started off with the nursery, we didn't have a baby unit, which we introduced, and we sort of had 2 rooms which we run the baby unit from. We've got 1 room which was specifically laid out in a way where we've just got cots there, and it's just literally a very quiet room for the babies, because when they're coming to the nursery, they're very young, and they're normally not used to sleeping in a lot of noise, and we have another room for the babies, which is very fun and very stimulating for them. It's got a lot of equipment which is appropriate to their age. As far as safety is paramount in the nursery, and we really take that into account when we're working here. Whilst working at the nursery, we need to make sure that all activities that we provide are safe, all equipment is safe, all equipment is appropriate, children are supervised at all times. There's 24-hour CCTV cameras around the nursery in operation, so for the safety of the children, which we've just recently installed. We have to make sure that every time somebody comes to the door, we have a senior member of staff attending to that person, because they know the parents. So we really need to be careful with the safety, and it is paramount at the setting.
Well, Sister Seema, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today about your day nursery.
It's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you very much for coming and bearing with the noise that they've been making.
No. You have very beautiful young boys, mashallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow, her twin boys are so adorable, mashallah. But that must be so difficult for her running a nursery like that, as well as having children herself.
Absolutely. I was so amazed when I went there, and how it's quite a big nursery, and how all the different age groups have different rooms, because obviously it's important that the similar age groups sort of get to socialise with each other, and they're not sort of put in with the kids that are too big. And so and then there's multiple rooms. You've got the babies with the cots, and then you've got the toddlers, and then you have the slightly older children, and she's got 2 twins, and she has a daughter as well. So it's I was really impressed, and it was just it's quite smoothly run as well. So I was really quite impressed.
And we need more things like that around, don't we, as well? I know there's a shortage of nurseries. One of my friends, when she had her second child, was saying that she's finding it really hard to get hold of a place in a decent nursery, and that looks fantastic as well. I really liked how important she said about the interaction with children. I think that's something perhaps unfortunately these days because parents are busy. They don't necessarily get that much time to interact with their own children, as well as making sure that their children are interacting with other children their age as well.
Yeah, and I think it's great, especially for her, the fact that she, as a parent, you know, gets to run a nursery, spends the day with kids all day, and also she gets to spend time with her own children. You know, they're not going to another nursery, they're going to her nursery, which is really nice. So you can be there with your children and be working as well. So I was, you know, that's something really, really nice.
Yeah, I'm quite jealous you got to go down and spend the day with such gorgeous kids as well.
Yeah, it was such a refreshing change because, you know, you're in the office all day, you're with adults, and, you know, and it's nice sort of obviously being with adults and everything, but it was just so nice to kind of be in a completely different environment with, you know, young kids, babies everywhere, and it was just, you know, they were playing, they were so carefree, and it was really nice.
Great. Okay, we're going to a quick break now, but there's still time for you to grab a cup of tea, so we'll see you in 3, inshallah.
And we'll be following Humera on her Video Ziyarat journal. And I'm actually looking really forward to that, Humera.
So am I, Fatima, but for now it's time for Hadith of the Week. So what Hadith have you got for us?
Today I picked out a Hadith that is narrated by Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he says it in praise of Lady Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And the Hadith is, a flower
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to your weekly edition of Morning Break. I'm Humeras Ziyarat.
And I'm Fatima Rizvi, and today we have another great show for you with our regular features like Hadith of the Week and our coaching tips from Sister Sidra, and obviously it's also a sort of him illustrating that she really was from paradise.
Completely agree, and I think, like you said, that image of the flower is very much symbolic of paradise, and like everyone says, she did come from paradise, didn't she? She was made from the seeds, I guess, of Jannah. And yeah, it's very moving, and it's very sad to read the fact that she's
nipped in the bud. It was from paradise and it went to paradise, but has left its fragrance in my mind. Which actually is a very, very beautiful, you know, hadith that Imam Ali Islam, you know, a praise that he has said about Lady Fatima Zahra, sallallahu alayha, and you know, just if, you know, I think it's just an amazing thing. How many husbands would really say that about their wives?
It's referred to a flower that was nipped in the bud, and that word nipped is so, it just seems like her life was cut at such an early age, and it was. So yeah, I completely agree, and in praise of a man saying that in praise of his wife is even more moving because of the fact that he says that her fragrance was left behind, and to think of losing someone you love is bad enough.